Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. If you haven't heard yet, the Cybertruck bombing that took place in Las Vegas outside of Trump's casino, Matthew Livelsberger left a manifesto. Well, of course he did. He left a manifesto and emails are surfacing of course, what he's thinking, what his mindset is, and why he did what he did. And of course, nobody out there sits for a second and thinks about what they're seeing in front of them. They just take all of this in as if it's real, as if it's real life, not thinking, well, wait a minute, how come all this stuff is coming out so fast? How come the police and the government are releasing emails? And how did they get this stuff so quickly, especially if everything in the car blew up and caught fire, which of course, conveniently, the only thing that survived was his passport and his government ID so you could identify him, but also his phone, which somehow didn't explode into a billion pieces, somehow survived this, and they were able to get all of his text messages off. And of course, the first thing they were thinking, the police and the government, when they got all of this stuff off of his phone was, of course, to give it to you, because that's how the police always operate, right? They were thinking, hey, we got to get this out to the world so the world could see what was going on in his mind. And of course, this is how the government stages these operations. They now give you manifestos. It is a government calling card every single time. And even the guy, the United Healthcare worker, Luigi Mangione, they do this so that you can get inside the mind of the person supposedly responsible for the act. Then you take what you hear they were thinking, right? Because everybody's going, what was this person thinking? What were they thinking when they went and did this? This guy had a newborn baby and he drove 800 miles and he went to blow up a Cybertruck and kill innocent civilians. I could have been one of them. What is this guy's problem? What is he thinking, right? And of course, inside of these manifestos, you always hear something that you can automatically stereotype to someone around you. You'll hear about conspiracy theories that are deliberately placed inside the manifesto. So of course, if you hear somebody who's talking about the same conspiracies, you automatically think that they're some type of a nut job. This all goes back, the manifesto, all goes back to an actual real manifesto. This all started when the Unabomber forced his manifesto into the press back in the 90s. And for anybody out there that's wondering if they think that the Unabomber was actually a psyop, if these things didn't actually occur, they did actually occur. The Unabomber targeted people who were advancing technology. If you don't know, the Unabomber was an MK Ultra mind control test subject. The CIA, when he was at Harvard, brought him in and did experiments on him. He went rogue. He went off grid. This is before they had the type of technology they have now, so they were unable to track him. And he was targeting people who were advancing technology. So even in some of the stuff with Luigi Mangione, which again connected directly to Nancy Pelosi's bloodline, Luigi Mangione, you could see just by watching how they're giving him this press coverage as being a hero, that this is to serve a purpose for AI governance and bringing in AI healthcare, a different healthcare system. That's why they do these things. They have him under, there's about 75 security guards protecting this guy every time he's transported somewhere, and they go out of their way to make sure you see it on the news. This is how this entire psyop works. So supposedly this guy, Matthew Livelsberger, was burned beyond recognition. His passport survived, his government IDs survived, and his cell phone, which looks like it was just covered in debris, somehow survived because they were able to get all the data off of the phone almost immediately within 48 hours and release it to the public. Not only that, they released all the footage to the public of him charging his Tesla Cybertruck at these charging stations, even cleaning the Tesla Cybertruck. Again, you have to pull yourself out of what you're seeing and say, why are they giving us all this stuff? Don't they need to investigate this? Why in some cases do they not release the manifesto? In other cases they do. And of course, this plays directly into the left-right paradigm because that's what this is all about, right? They won't release the manifesto if it's a Democrat, if it's a trans person who has these crazy liberal ideologies, they won't release it out into the open. But if it's a Trump supporter, if it's somebody who's MAGA, they will. And I'm going to read the manifesto to you momentarily. But there's another thing to note that just shows you how scripted all this stuff is. This guy was on a reality TV show recently, And on the show, he went under the name Matt Berg. And I'm going to play a clip for you that Inside Edition aired in the last 24 hours. And I want you to note how this clip ends. It ends with them in slow motion showing Matt Berg shaking the hand of the other military operative on the show that he teamed up with. And you can see very clearly the pass grip of a master mason being done between Matt Berg and this other man. Now, a lot of people out there, when they see the Freemason handshakes, they become skeptical as they go, well, people shake hands. They don't know where their thumb's going. Well, of course, that's how they want you to think. Now, it's difficult at times to identify the exact shake going on because, like I've talked about, it's more of a feel than it is something that you'll identify from a distance. It's between the two of them. It's how they feel the grip on their hand to know and identify who that person is. And they show this off deliberately for other members of the secret societies, the other fellow members of the craft, to actually see. And even in this Inside Edition video, they strategically place this in slow motion at the end of the video to show you that this is a government operation, that this is nothing more than a production of the CIA. Take a look.
It's a reality show that pits teams of elite soldiers from around the world against each other.
Matt and Tim from the U.S. Army Special Forces, better known as the Green Berets.
Matthew Livelsberger and his partner Tim Kennedy, both Green Berets, appeared on the Ultimate Soldier Challenge 12 years ago on the History Channel.
While the other guys are still setting up, the Americans take their first shot at the sniper on the top of the tower.
They not only won, it wasn't even close.
You know, for television, they always try to make it a little bit more competitive, but we swept the whole entire show.
When he appeared on the show, Livelsberger used a shortened version of his name, Matt Berg. So it took Tim Kennedy a while to put two and two together.
It took about 12 hours of me seeing some photos as more photos started coming out of you know, who he was. And then I saw a Matt Berg with a older photo of him, and I was like, oh no, dude, I know that guy. And then it just like tore my heart out because he was a really great Green Beret.
And what was he like?
He was charming. He was talented. He was personable. He was kind. He was all the things that you would expect from a Green Beret.
At one point during the show, Livelsberger had to stop taping in the 90-plus degree heat. He was suffering from heat exhaustion.
I'm about to throw up, man. I got heat exhaustion, man. I need to take this off right now.
Tim Kennedy says he hadn't heard from Livelsberger for a few years.
It just categorically does not make sense. From everything that I have heard, he was universally valued by his team, by his peers. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense, and it is just horrifically heartbreaking.
So you can clearly see at the end of that, this handshake. Now, people out there, they could debate all they want. Is it a Master Mason grip? Is it a... This is a Freemasonic handshake, and when they strategically show you handshakes, that's what your brain needs to process. Whether it's a picture on the front page of the newspaper or the front page of a website where they'll show a president shaking hands with somebody else, they show you that for a reason. They don't show you that and say, hey, look, they're friends. Donald Trump's shaking hands with Netanyahu. You already know that they're friends. They show you this to show the fellow members of these secret societies that they're in on it. They show it to you right to your face. They put that in there as the last clip to show people out there that this is a government operation, and that is the past grip of a Master Mason. Now, what's important to get into here with the manifesto, of course, is how is it being spun by the alt-right media. And, of course, people like Alex Jones are talking about how this guy was going to reveal things about the deep state, how he had evidence of war crimes in Afghanistan against the United States government. These are all talking points that they want you to think. He knew something, right? So they blew up the Cybertruck because he was going to release information to the public, right? And then when you read the manifesto, you understand this better because the manifesto has all the talking points that we hear that will make it very easy to stereotype this guy, right? Anti-DEI, makes him seem like a Maga racist. All these things are done deliberately. Listen to his manifesto. We are the United States of America, the best country people to ever exist. But right now, we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. We are crumbling because of a lack of self-respect, morals, and respect for others. Greed and gluttony has consumed us. The top 1% decided long ago they weren't going to bring everyone else with them. You are cattle to them. Again, these are talking points that you'll hear people like me and you discuss, how we're cattle to them. That's a specific thing that a lot of us talk about because certain books like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion mention the fact that we are cattle to them. So what does this do subconsciously? It plants things in people's brains who are hearing this, specifically people who are anti-conspiracy, people who are on the left when they hear stuff like that. So it continues to say, we have strayed from family values and corrupted our minds, and I am a prime example of having it all, but it never being enough. A lot of us are just sitting around waiting to die. No sunlight, no steps, no fresh air, no hope. Our children are addicted to screens by the age of 2. We are filling our bodies with processed foods. And again, these are all things that are true. These are all things that you say, wait, you say the same exact things as this guy does, right? Exactly. So what does that make somebody out there think of someone like me? Well, that I'm somebody who would go and take a Cybertruck and blow it up and cause harm to people. That I'm somebody who has no hope because I'm negative about the things in the world because I won't go along with the New World Order's enslavement plan, right? And you can even see how this is written, how fake this is, because it's just all over the place, right? Oh, this is an email that he sent, right? This is an email manifesto that he sent out that they're releasing to you. A lot of us are just sitting around waiting to die. No sunlight, no steps, no fresh air, no hope. Our children are addicted to screens by the age of 2. We're filling our bodies with processed foods. Huh? What? So he's going from no sunlight, no steps, no fresh air, no hope, and we're filling our bodies with processed foods while our 2-year-olds are addicted to a screen while he has a newborn baby and he's talking about having no hope, right? He says our population is too fat to join the military, yet we are facing a war with China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran before 2030, right? And how does, before 2030, before Agenda 2030, how convenient. We must take these actions if we're going to make it past the next few years in one piece. And then he gives his bullet points on the action we need to take. All right, sounds like somebody who's going to blow up themselves in a Tesla vehicle when they have all these steps that we need to take to, to progress as humanity. And then he goes and, it makes no sense, right? So he says, we must end the war in Ukraine with the negotiated settlement, talking point of the right. It's the only way, he says. Focus on strength and winning. Masculinity is good and men must be leaders. Strength is a deterrent and fear is the product. Again, stereotyping conservatives and MAGA, right? Oh, this masculinity crap. The alpha males of the MAGA movement. It's to a T, this manifesto. It's to a T. So he continues and he says, it's just hard not to laugh. It really is. Weeded out those in our government and military who do not idealize, number 2, the income inequality in this country and cost of living is outrageous. The number of homeless on our street is embarrassing and disgusting. Have some pride and take care of this. Stop obsessing over diversity. We are all diverse and DEI is a cancer. Thankfully, we rejected the DEI candidate and we'll have a real president instead of Weekend at Bernie's, right? More MAGA talking points. How viral did all that stuff with Joe Biden and Weekend at Bernie's go? That Joe Biden's a walking corpse. All the DEI stuff that we hear Musk talk about and Trump talk about and all the conservatives talk about, right? And if you're anti-DEI, Democrats have been trained to think that you're a racist. This is just basic mind control 101. If you were going to stereotype what a manifesto would look like from somebody who was a Trump voter, MAGA, so far it fits it 100% to a T, and it only gets even better because he starts talking about drones and more conspiracies so that people think anyone talking about those things are likely to commit a crime like this guy committed, right? Supposedly. So it says, we must move on from the culture of weakness and self-enrichment perpetuated by our senior political and military leaders. We are done with the blatant corruption. Our soldiers are done fighting wars without end states or clear objectives. This was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Oh, you like how that word wake-up call is in there? I remember a channel called Wake Up Call. that started to go semi-viral, just like the other 83 that was had a good amount of subs, right? Wake-up call. Interesting. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? ? Why did I personally do it now? I needed to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. Consider this last sunset of 24 and my actions the end of our sickness and a new chapter of health for our people. Rally around the Trump, Musk, Kennedy, and ride this wave to the highest hegemony for all Americans. We are second to none. Can we just go back to that for a second? Rally around Trump, Musk, and Kennedy, right? So if you were going to do that and your purpose was that you're pro-Trump and you wanted to, promote conservative ideologies, why would you get a Tesla Cybertruck if you're pro-Musk, then drive it outside of Trump Towers and Trump's casino, in Las Vegas, and then blow it up only to leave a manifesto that talks about rallying around Trump and Musk? And of course, you would think that he would know that the Cybertruck with a bomb in it probably wouldn't do the type of damage that he'd want because of how those things are actually built. Makes no sense, actually. He goes on to say, fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. Military and vets move on DC starting now. Militias facilitate and augment this activity. Occupy every major road along Fed buildings and the campus of Fed buildings by the hundreds of thousands. Log the highways around down the semis right after everybody gets in. Hold until the purge is complete. So talking about a purge. Try peaceful means, but be prepared to fight to get the Dems out of the federal government and military by any means necessary. They all must go. And a hard reset must occur for our country to avoid collapse. So for starters, you hear that, right? He's talking about a militia. Militias facilitate, right? He's got that January 6th vibe going on. You would think that maybe he wouldn't take his own life then if he has clearly a blueprint here on if he wanted to do something for change that he could do instead of blowing himself up outside of Trump Tower, right? So what does that start feeding into the conservative mindset's brain? It starts feeding in that they whacked him, that he wrote this, that they shot him and they put him in a driverless vehicle and blew it up outside of Trump's casino to send a message. They're literally turning this guy into a hero. They're turning him into a MAGA martyr. So look at what we're dealing with right now. We have the Luigi guy who wrote a manifesto, who's alive, who's somewhat of a pretty boy, according to what all these people are saying, at least oh my goodness, oh yeah. They're making it out like he's, Fabio over there. And this guy, Luigi, leaves a manifesto, and he's a hero to the Democrats, even though he took somebody's life, supposedly, which clearly he did not take anyone's life. It was acted out, and that guy got a permanent vacation, was sent to, another country, protected by the Mossad, likely, right? Then you got this guy, right? This guy, all of a sudden, he was going to expose this stuff. And then, of course, the narrative starts coming out more and more about the drones. He was going to expose the stuff with the drones. Did anybody hear that? So the alt-right media like Alex Jones is claiming that he was attempting to get information out about the deep state planning to target Trump with drones hours before he reportedly died. And there's other stories out there now that are getting fed from the alt-right media about what the drones were, where the drones came from, who was behind the drones, right? This is how the government operates. Real things occur, like drones being spotted in the sky, and the government goes, well, hopefully people stop noticing it. More and more people talk about it. More and more people talk about it, right? So when the government creates a psyop like this, and they put a guy in a Tesla Cybertruck and he blows up, and then who's giving out this information that he was going to expose the drones? The government's giving it out. Just like the government's releasing his email. They got it awfully fast. They got his manifesto awfully fast. And they gave it to you awfully fast. How often do they do that? Do you know the story with the Unabomber with the manifesto? That because it wasn't a government operation, the Unabomber and his manifesto, the government refused to release. They refused to release his manifesto. He wanted his manifesto out so he could warn the world about what was coming with technology. And the government said, we're not going to put it out there. And Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, said, look, I will stop bombing people in exchange for you publishing my manifesto in the newspapers. And the government at first said, no way, because they read his manifesto. And his manifesto didn't say, hey, we should go pull a January 6th, hey, militias, get together and go after the government. His manifesto is literally about the dangers of the future of technology. That's what it's about. And the government read that and said no. It's not like the government read it and it was calling for an uprising against the government. They were like, we can't publish this. All his manifesto was about was a warning for where we were headed as humankind with the advancements of technology and how the human race was going to be wiped out. And here we are 30 years later, and they're telling us that AI is going to replace us and eventually kill us and looks at us like ants. So when the government read his manifesto, they said, okay, the Unabomber wants us to publish this. And in return, he won't bomb people anymore. And the government said, no, we will not publish this. Don't you think they would have looked at it and said, who cares? He's talking about technology and this stuff. Who gives a crap? It's not like the manifesto was talking about people turning on the government. Well, of course, they eventually finally published it in return for him not bombing because they couldn't catch him. And eventually his brother heard the manifesto. That's the story, of course. Heard the manifesto and thought it was his brother, and his brother turned him in, and that's how they eventually got Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Well, in this case, wouldn't you think that the government would read what this guy wrote about forming a militia and say, well, we shouldn't release that to the public because the people will hear his ideologies and they might actually act on them. They might think that this guy is some type of a hero, a patriot. And suddenly they might try to purge and do these other dangerous things that he's writing in his manifesto. Oh, no. The government wasn't worried about that. They just immediately released it. Told everyone it was time to wake up, right? Time to wake up. We're being led by weak and feckless leadership. Military vets, move to D.C. now. Militias, facilitate and augment this activity. Occupy every road, federal buildings, and the campus of Fed buildings by the hundreds of thousands. Why would they release this? Why would they release it unless they're the ones who wrote it? Because you would look at it from the perspective of the government. You go, well, we don't have to release his manifesto. He's dead. There's no purpose of us releasing it. We don't have to give the people out there any information. Because when real crimes occur, they rarely give you any information, do they? Right? Here we are 48 hours after this occurred, or 72 hours, and the government reads this and they don't go, wait a minute. We shouldn't put that out there because that might make Democrats stereotype conservatives and think that they're all dangerous and that they're going to uprise. And this might actually get conservatives to actually read his blueprint, right? It's almost like the government is saying, hey, this is what all of you MAGA people should do. Occupy roads and Fed buildings, because that's what the government wants you to do. The government wants chaos. The motto is order out of chaos. They wrote the manifesto themselves. This guy, like I said, is likely a super soldier. I can almost guarantee you they probably wanted more casualties in this event, and they didn't get more casualties because they can only do so much, right? Got to have people around the car. The thing's got to go off the right way, right? But the conservatives just believe, well, this guy was going to release information, so they whacked him somewhere. You'll see that there'll be all these stories where there's sleuths think that, wait a minute, somewhere between here and there, he was killed. They put him in the driver's seat, and it's a self-driving car, so they drove him there and blew it up to send a message to Trump and Musk and to MAGA. That's the narrative that you're going to start hearing from the alt-right media. He was going to release info about drones. I mean, this is nothing more than a government psyop. That's all that it is. And all you need to know from a common sense standpoint is that this manifesto reads as a dangerous piece of material to read. It reads as something where they're calling for an uprising against the government. So the government would say, we're not going to release that. There's already enough chaos in America. There's already enough division in America. Oh, no, they ran to release it. They couldn't wait. They couldn't get it out there fast enough. They were like, probably at 12 hours, like, can we put it out now? No, we got to wait. You got to wait 2 days. We don't want to be too suspicious, as if this isn't too suspicious. The same with Luigi and his manifesto. How does his manifesto read? Oh, it reads as a revolutionary tale about the dangers of healthcare, about how healthcare is not fair. So all the Democrats look at him as he's a hero too. They write the manifestos to play into your mind so that you can get into the mind of these people. Then they look like revolutionaries. They look like heroes. They're government operatives on both sides. They're playing the public. This is what I would look at and call an utter joke. If you believe this stuff, you need to seek help. Because if you're an adult hearing this stuff and you think that it's real, you're literally probably have the brain development of a 3-year-old. It is that fake. Think about these situations. Think about manifestos and how, just think the Unabomber is a perfect example because that's when the manifestos first started. Really, right? That's the biggest manifesto that, in my lifetime that anyone's ever told. Oh, there's a manifesto. You got to get the manifesto out. And the fact that the government wouldn't release it, they were willing to let people die at first because they didn't want him to get his way and they felt what he was writing was dangerous. And if you read his manifesto, it's literally about technology. It's nothing about government overhaul or any type of an uprising. It's about regression in technology, going backwards with technology, right? And the government was like, we can't release that. We're going to weigh the pros and cons. He blows more people up or we release something that's anti-technology. Every single person who read it would have been like, let him put it out there. You could save a life. You could save people he's going to stop bombing. We don't have to live in fear. Okay. And they literally waited and waited and waited and finally gave in because the public were putting pressure on the government saying, we don't want people getting blown up. Let's read what he's got to say. And they put it out there. Of course, he's somebody who went through MK Ultra and mind control and broke free from the government. He was rogue from the CIA. They were chasing him down. He knew all the ins and outs of how to get away with this stuff because he was a trained operative, right? Now you flash forward to 2024, every person, whether it's at a school, a grocery store, outside of the Trump casino, they're just releasing manifestos left and right. Since when? Since when is this the new? Oh, well, it's the new thing now because the government looks at it and they go, if we put all the same talking points inside of each manifesto, this guy's a Democrat, so here's his talking points. Boom. He goes after United Healthcare, all his talking points all Democrats will resonate with, they'll agree with it. All the conservatives will get angry about the fact that they're cheering this guy on, even though he supposedly murdered someone. And then the other side, right? Conspiracies, drones, hates DEI, talking about, how we need to go after the government, right? He's talking about military and militias moving in D.C., yet he's saying, oh, he's so thankful for Trump and Musk and Kennedy. It's an utter joke. The public are being played. This is what you call a psychological operation. And again, the guy's connection to Fort Bragg. What more do you need to know? Like I said in a previous video, this guy was likely programmed, like most of them are. You could call them super soldiers. You can call them Manchurian cannons. Call it what you want. Who carried out an act, who was under mind control. And his act was to end his life and to blow the car up. And I believe more people were supposed to die, right? And they didn't. But the purpose of it was the manifesto. That's what the purpose of it is, to get this out so that people could hear about people with these ideologies are dangerous. We need to change laws. We need to watch and monitor what people say online. People who think like this are the new terrorists, right? People who are talking about, some of the talking points, like the things I said, they look at us as cattle, talking about 2030, right? Oh my gosh, no sunlight, right? He's referencing no sunlight. What do you think he's referencing? He's referencing sun shielding, chemtrailing, right? Oh, okay, so he's referencing those. That sounds a lot like hurting humanity or whatever that guy's name is this month or any of these other, it sounds a lot like him. Their brains automatically stereotype it. It doesn't matter whether these people realize it or not because they're being programmed. The majority of people don't realize they're being programmed unless you pull yourself out of the matrix. And then you see why the talking points are the same and how people stereotype and then how people think and perceive and how this is all for a bigger picture. They're literally sending these guys out to carry out these acts so that you support one guy versus the other guy based on political ideologies. And that's what they've done. Luigi's a hero to the left. This guy will be looked at as a hero to the right. They'll say, of course, that he's not a hero because he didn't really try to blow it up. They blew him up because he was going to release info. They whacked him, sent him in a Cybertruck that was driverless and blew it up outside Trump Tower to send a message to Trump and Maga because all the stuff he wrote about was about an uprising and militias getting together. I mean, it's unreal. It's truly unreal. Anyway, I had to go on a rant about that. Here is the, what name is better for him? Matt Berg. Now they're calling him Matt Berg on the TV show. I mean, might as well call him again, George Glass, John Doe, all one in the same. He had his past grip of a master mason. What else do you need to see with this other than to know the second that they tell you there's a manifesto, you should automatically believe that it's a government operation. The government releases it to you almost immediately, despite the fact that the majority of the things in there, the government would look at and say, well, that's dangerous. We don't want that out. If I posted a video, I'll put it this way, on YouTube, and I was calling for all the things in his manifesto, not only would my channel be shut down, which is, of course, what happened. The police would be at my front door. The FBI, the feds would be at my front door. I'd be arrested. I'd be put in jail, more than just arrested. I'd be in jail for a long time if I said, hey, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do, right? But here's the government telling you that this guy was going to protect Trump and he was going to breaking news about war crimes and all this other stuff. And his manifesto has this blueprint that, of course, they would look at and they'd go, we can't release. That's a blueprint on what they're calling MAGA to do to the government. Get all Democrats out of government. It's ridiculous. Laughable. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry for the long rant, but you see these things and it's like, you wonder how people's minds are actually working. And then you realize, oh, wait, they're not. They're on autopilot. They're on cruise control. This information just goes in. They perceive the news as real. They don't even think twice as to why all these people suddenly write manifestos like it's a curriculum now. If you're going to commit an act, any type of an act of violence or a crime, oh, you got to write a manifesto, right? So they all just do it now because, they just all feel like they want to get their message out because they're real revolutionaries. Give me a break. The government wants you to read the manifesto. Does the government want you to link these things between certain political groups with ideologies and, of course, give you stuff like that, like blueprints for an actual uprising? Utter joke. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you and your families, as always.